What do you think? And I'll go on to another topic. It could be Hitler as a vegetarian, Hitler as a sugar freak. Vegetarianism doesn't give you the right to, No, I was right about that. 1983 had Hitler eaten a lamb chop. God, if he only ate like a leg of lamb once a week, or if before he was about to, let's say, commit an atrocity or invade a country, if Eva Braun had said, Adolf, maybe you should have a leg of lamb, a lamb stew tonight. I'll make you something nice with potatoes, and you want a nice glass of Riesling, Adolf. And if he listened to her, when he was relaxed and sat back and listened to some music, perhaps the history of World War II would have been quite different. But no, he liked his asparagus, he liked his bell peppers, he liked his pasta, his rice. And then he would have a little dessert afterwards, usually a heavy cream pie, a heavy cream dessert. And he'd go into a rage. He'd go into first a high and then a sugar collapse and pass out. And then he'd wake up from that in such a miserable mood. He'd torture, kill, and invade. So there's a lot to be said for diet and warfare. Thank God Obama eats healthfully. I'm glad that Michelle feeds him well. So he doesn't have the same impulses to go on a rage into another nation. The guy runs. You got to give him credit. Keeps himself in good shape. And look, he is what he is. But he's a very balanced, very focused man. He knows what he's doing. His agenda is a far-left revolutionary agenda, and he's doing very well. He's getting away with it. He's got friends in the media, no opposition in the Republican Party. And but on the other hand, he's not plunging into in Syria. We have to say, thank God. I mean, that could almost trump everything else that's going on here, the invasion of Syria. It could destroy the country permanently. It could bring us to war with Russia, God forbid. Do you realize that? You want to really take you study 1917. And again, I don't want to bore you. It's late at night. I just make it short and sweet. I'm a student of history. You know what happened in 1917. World War I didn't have to happen. It started almost the same exact way. No one wanted World War I. There was no reason for it. It was not like World War II. World War II, there was a reason for it. There was no reason for World War I at all. And what happened was one nation threatened another nation. One nation started to take a piece of the other nation's sovereignty, which is what Mexico's doing to the U.S. right now. But instead of our government defending us from Mexico stealing our sovereignty, they're on the side of Mexico. But we won't go into that. It's a little too painful for me to even analyze it. So, sovereignty was being threatened. It was mainly the egos of old men that were being challenged. And the war drums started to be beaten in 1917. War drums, war drums, war drums. War drums. Carpets from the looms of Mohawk. War drums. The Mohawk drums started to beat. But it wound up with a war where tens of millions of men were butchered. I mean, I watch footage of World War I. I love documentaries. And I can't believe how many men. I read the numbers, 3 million men, 3 million Germans, 3 million British and French killed, young men. The nations never recovered from that loss. I try to imagine the boys. I try to imagine my son and his friends. I try to imagine the families. I try to imagine the sweethearts. I try to imagine the children. I can't imagine it. You can't even comprehend it. Do you hear the numbers? The West, by the way, never, ever recovered from World War I. Ever. It never recovered from World War I, and it led to World War II. And we never recovered from World War II. And the West was so weakened by these unnecessary wars that we have what we have now with rather inferior enemies literally making inroads against us and taking over this country at every turn. Because the most vigorous stock was destroyed. With some exception, of course. Some of the greatest and most vigorous stock of the West was destroyed in World War I and II. I know you don't want to hear any of this because it brings up genetics and it brings up children and it brings up breeding. And these are no-no topics. It's like saying Muslim and terrorism. You're not allowed to even think those things. But all right, I just thought of it. Hey, speaking of apps, by the way, just thinking out loud. Sue me for thinking out loud if you want. It's not a crime yet in America. I thought was still free. I'm a free thinker. So I say I love buying the app. I bought the app tonight.